Hi guys, welcome to Race Centre. Dazza here again, and I thought I'd continue on the theme. Did a video yesterday, but continue with the theme of older generation R6s and super sport race bikes because 2 days in a row I had 2006 models on the dyno, and I'll put a link in the description for anyone watching who didn't see the other video about how the old school quick shifters used to work. This bike, as I said, is a 2006. A little bit different to the one we had on in that other video. This bike has been in for a Translogic quick shifter and blipper setup, so we're making it more modern now. And the Translogic blipper and quick shifter is feeling absolutely amazing and certainly a lot easier to use than the old button. And yeah, the downshifts are amazing on it. So really, really nice. This bike actually, and while we had it on the dyno as well, which we normally do in most jobs, is we just did a bit of a tune assessment. So the customer Mark he actually has another R6 that we've done work on. We've done an engine build in his R6. This one he bought as a wet bike. So it's an race bike. It's got a lot of good stuff in it from the day. It's got an Olin's rear shock, one of the older ones. They were actually really good in the day. And it's actually got a YEC wiring harness and ECU. So the one we had on in the other video didn't. This did. So I thought it was a really good little opportunity to continue the theme about talking about those older school bikes and what it was like back then. With these R6s. And I guess for the R6s, you know, the model that came out in 2006 was quite revolutionary for the day, especially in terms of the 600 Supersport category. It was a big step. A few things that you may not know about that bike when it came out is the rev tacho on the bikes was a big fat liar. And the marketing paraphernalia that came out with R6 was talking about the bike revving to 17,000 RPM. So check this thing out, right? They're actually saying, but when the bike came out, that it would rev to 17,000 RPM, and that was in the marketing campaign, right? And I remember I pre-ordered mine, a 2006 one, to go specifically for racing because I was racing back then. Pre-ordered it. When we picked it up and got the bike, we actually got a little black book, like a hardcover book from Yamaha that was pretty cool, and it talked about the development of the R6. I probably still got it somewhere, which was a cool little book, and it banged on about the 17,000 RPM rev limit. I think it might have even been more than like 17.2 or something like that. And you've got the bike and you look at the dash and it's like, oh wow, look where the red line is. That is completely false and an utter lie, and Yamaha would have 100% known about it and just marketed the crap out of it. So obviously it was a very anticipated model when it came out in 2006. It was the first 600 that had ride-by-wire on it, quite revolutionary back then. And as I said, in 2005, really what you had is you had your standard 600, say your road version, your production version, and then you would have your race kit, ECU and wiring harness like this bike has got. And the difference between those two were that the main difference is that the race one would rev higher. So if you look at a CBR 600, back in those days they'd only rev to 15,000 RPM, and when you put the HRC box in it, it would rev to 15.8 or 16,000 RPM. You had to get all the race parts to make it perform the way that the engine had the capability of. In 2006, Yamaha broke the trend. Like I said, they put the ride-by-wire, and standard they had the high rev limit. But as I said, they actually marketed it as a 17,000 rev limit, complete lie. And over the preceding months, as people started to put them onto dynos, they worked out, hang on a second, Yamaha, you're lying. They only actually rev to 15.8 and 16,000. You know, the soft limit's 15.8 and then 16,000 hard limit. And that's why you'll see, and then when they updated the model in 2008, and you'll see the 2008 dashes are different from 2008 to 2016. They have a different dash because the numbers are actually different, and the 2008 dash is not the big fat liar. it's still a little bit of a liar. It's still, the dash shows you a higher RPM than what it actually is doing, but it's more correct. So Yamaha changed that. There was a bit of talk about like why they misled everybody, but they did. And as I said, not in a small way, they actually marketed the crap out of it and said that's one of the key features, that this new engine revs to 17,000 RPM. Another big thing that happened with this, when this model came out in 2006, is there was no longer an idle screw, an idle adjuster. So this was the first model they brought out where there was no idle adjuster, which became a bit of a pain, because when we first took it into racing, if you wanted to have a higher idle so the bike rolls better to assist you with engine brake, you no longer could do that. But if you had a YEC ECU, you could. So that was one of the other features that you could have with the YEC ECU. So that was a feature that was in there. So like I said, revolutionary bike, they came out, they updated them a bit in 2008, and then they stayed the same until 2016. Pretty much there were some minor things in colours and stuff, and a lot of that is due to the GFC when it happened in 2008. It really hit Japan hard, and the Japanese models really started to slow down in terms of development, and that's where we started to see in 2009 and up to sort of 15, 16 that the European manufacturers really started to overtake the Japanese manufacturers, which is still, you know, you look at it now in terms of the technology, the Europeans are quite on top, especially in MotoGP and stuff, and a lot of it started at that GFC. So when the GFC happened, it really hurt Yamaha, hurt the Japanese manufacturers, and that's why this model didn't really get more and more updates, but still an absolutely fantastic bike. So on that too, so with the YEC box, a couple of things that you could do that you couldn't do with a standard bike is you could do it, like I said, you could change the idle. You could do things like I said in the other video about the horn, using the horn button or another button for a quick shifter, or plugging a quick shifter. The bike actually had a provision for a quick shifter in it. And you had your kill times that you could change in the YEC program. So you had the ECU, then you'd get the software on a CD, back in those days, a CD. Put it into the computer, and then you could communicate to the ECU. You could also do a fuel tune through there. You could change ignition and things like that. Now, what used to happen in those days, a lot of people used to, you know, if they were racing and they had the YEC, they would also put a power commander on top of it. And there was a talk out there that you know, to get that real fine tuning, you needed a power commander as well. The reason for that is because the YEC, especially in the earlier versions, you only had so many cells that you could fuel tune. So if you know, fuel tuning, you've got this table where you've got throttle position and then your RPM across another axis, and then you've got all your little boxes. The power commander will give you a lot more options, or a lot more boxes, whereas the YEC box was restricted in how many boxes you had. So if you like, it's like having a TV or a computer screen that has less pixels. So that's what the YEC is. So a lot of people used to do that. You can do a really good tune just through the YEC without putting a power commander on it. There's a couple of little tricks to be able to do that, and you'll see from the graphs just how good we got the AFR on this bike, because we did the tune assessment and it was like, you know what, it could do with a tune. We knew it had the YEC. We have so much experience with using YEC tuning that we knew that it was relatively not going to be too complicated for us to retune the bike for the customer mark, so we've done that. And as I said, you'll see from the graphs how well we got the AFR, because there is a bit of a trick that you can get, even though you're dealing with less cells and less pixels, if you like, you can get a really good tune if you know how to do it. So, and just a bit of going, because like I said, it's quite nostalgic for me, because when these bikes came out in 2006, like I pre-ordered mine like 6 months in advance or whatever it was, and was so keen to get it. So I was so excited, and it's great that, you know, when was that? Wow, it's like 17 years ago that we're still getting them on the dyno and getting to play with them, so that's fantastic. The other thing too, I've noticed it's got this Olin steering dampener on it, and it's got the whole bracket. You know, anyone that's familiar with these bikes will know that they've got a bit of a complex bracket structure on them, so that there. And when I, like I said, got mine in 2006 and went to go racing in the Superstock Championship, steering dampeners and aftermarket steering, it didn't come with one, and they weren't available. No one had made a kit yet. It was so back then, you know, people weren't getting access to the bike and spitting things out as fast as they do these days. So we had the 2006 bike, and I couldn't get a steering dampener anywhere that would fit one, or a mounting bracket, and it took like 6 months. And when these came out, they were on the nose, the bike they're quite steep and flighty bike. So I raced it for the first 6 months of my race with that year without a steering dampener. And I can tell you, I had some hairy moments with it. So I remember one particular was at Eastern Creek, or Sydney Motorsport Park now, and going through turn 1, coming out the exit hard on the gas. Back then it was quite bumpy in that area. I think I actually made a bit of a mistake, and I was quite wide. Getting closer to the exit, hit some bumps, and the thing just went into an absolute massive tank slapper. And that was 5th gear, and I think I was back to full throttle by that point, so I was moving pretty fast. I had a massive tank slapper, ran wide, ran off the track. There's grass, gravel, all that stuff. Managed to stay upright, I don't know how, and I was approaching the concrete wall. Thankfully I didn't get too close, but I was approaching. There was a minute there I was thinking, oh, this is not great. So I remember doing that with a steering dampener, and like I said, that because I didn't have one, and plus I didn't really know heaps about, I was still quite new to the sport then, and the bike wasn't set up really with anything like what we set them up these days, so it was quite unstable, flighty, and it was hard to ride. But I remember having that big moment, and it was I was like, wow. So that was 17 years ago, and I reckon there still might be a bit of poo coming out after that one. So quite nostalgic. Love these things. That's just a little bit about some of the things that they were back in the day. So this one's a bit of a hybrid. Still got the older YEC technology and stuff, and that's what we've tuned it through. But it's now got a state-of-the-art Translogic auto blip and quick shift system on it. So let's go and make some noise. Oh, and I nearly forgot the power. So this one makes mid 110s at the rear wheel, and in the video I did on Dingoes, I explained that it made mid 110s. So we don't know the heritage of this particular engine, but as I said, we had done an older engine build on Dingo's bike back in the day. But the big difference between the two bikes is this has a full Yoshi race system on it, exhaust system. Dingo's only has a slip-on style exhaust, has a collector and the slip-on. It doesn't have. It's got standard headers and stuff. So the fact that they're making around the same power, you can see the improvement from the engine build. And if you were to put a similar style exhaust of this onto Dingo's bike, as I said in that video, it's going to make like 113, 114. And conversely, Mark's actually got, like I said, another one of these bikes. We have done an engine build in that a while ago, and it makes a little bit more power than this guy. But again, it has the same exhaust as Dingo's, so it's not actually comparing apples with apples. So Mark, if you put a full system onto the other bike, it will make a fair bit more power.